What's up, party people? BV here for another episode of Retail Media Vibes. We're episode 3. Retail Media Vibes is a doing business in Bentonville podcast, and we are being recorded at Podcast Video Studios in Rogers, Arkansas. Today, I have my guest, Cassie Murray, and we'll be going through and chatting today about measurement at retail, what really matters, understanding e-commerce marketplaces, and what happened to Target's Mojo. So if you ever want to get a podcast recorded, I highly recommend Podcast Video Studios here in Rogers. They are a professional team and they take care of all the work that you probably don't want to do to create a podcast. And you can just come in and focus on your content just like I do every single time. So come check them out here in Rogers. All right, so now on with the show. So we're going to start off meeting with our guest today. We're going to do a little vibe chat with Cassie Murray. Hi, Cassie. How are you?
Hello, Brandon. I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, excited to have you on. We've been talking a little bit about having you on the podcast for a while, so I'm really excited that we actually made the podcast happen.
Yes.
And actually have you on the podcast. So love to get to know you. I know you a bit, but obviously we want our audience to get to know you a bit as well. And so want to share a little bit about your background and ask you a few more questions.
Yeah. I have kind of made it a point in my career to stay on the front side of digital and omni-commerce transformation as it impacts more of the shopper marketing side. And so my path has been brand, it's been independent media companies, was with Triad, early on in my career, and even retailtainment.
Yeah, that's awesome. What really gets you excited about retail, right? So this Retail Media Vibes, you've got that background in retail. Like, what are the things that get you excited about it?
I love that what we are talking about today will be outdated likely by this time next year.
Yeah.
And so I know that's not for everybody, but I love the change because it's a constant challenge. We're always something new and fresh to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, one of the reasons why I started this podcast is because the change of retail media, what the definition of retail media is. And, there's such a great community of people who work in this space that I just love. And so it was great to be able to start the podcast. So let me kind of give you a little bit of an icebreaker question. So if you had a virtual AI assistant, think about that for a second, somebody, I guess,
yes,
that could do 3 things for you, what would those first 3 things you would ask them to do?
And this is where with AI, I love it. But what I really want done is my laundry. I want my floors clean. I want the bed.
You want a robot. You don't want
I want a robot. Yes. I want an AI robot. But until then, I kind of started playing around with all the shortcut automations and NFCs. And so I like being able to tap in if we need more dog food, like when the dog food's out, and it sends a shortcut and it will send a text and then add to list. Sometimes it doesn't work. So with any technology, we're still doing that. But I think more of the virtual assistant stuff, like scheduling doctor's appointment, the mundane, just boring things is what I would hand over more readily.
Yeah. For me, thinking about an AI assistant, I think it's one of those things that keeps me on track, right? So
yes.
I've always thought of AI as it should be more of a push than a pull, right? So obviously there's some sort of stimulus and you get back a response. I would love an AI to say, hey, you know what? You got a big meeting in a week. You should really start on that presentation now, right? So you're not waiting till last minute or you get distracted with other things.
Or even finding efficiencies in your schedule and being like, hey, I know on Thursday you were needing to pick up the dry cleaning, but you'll be over there Wednesday.
Right.
And it moves it in your schedule so that it saves you time and energy. That part, the efficiency and the optimization part, if they could just do that for me, if instead of me going, oh, dang it, I forgot to do that. Or, man, now I've got to drive completely across town for just one thing. And I was just over here yesterday. If it could tell that I was in downtown Bentonville,
right,
be like, hey, you've been meaning to stop by the Tea and Spice shop.
Right.
It would remind me while I'm down there because I don't always remember.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think we're on that path to getting there because of the way that apps and agents will be able to communicate behind the scenes and, get better at doing those things, at least those reminders and those pushes. I think everybody could benefit from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Cassie. Well, thanks for that. Let's now go into our quick hit topic. So a little topical banter, right? That's why we're here to talk about some things that are happening out there in retail media and marketing. So the first one is Amazon Lens. So they've added a visual search, a live visual search. So I think there was always that opportunity to take a picture of something and send it in and get back a response. Now it's live, right? So you can open up the camera, it's live streaming, it'll pick up something in a room. There'll be a swipeable carousel of products. It's integrated with their AI, Rufus, and you can query about the product directly within that stream. And so it really is like kind of a new opportunity to look at and find products that are in the physical environment and bring them obviously into e-commerce, and obviously ask questions about it and so forth. So, on one hand, I can see the benefit of that, but to be honest, like I've never really used visual search too much personally, as for shopping purposes, especially. I mean, I might do something with a bug, like what the heck kind of bug is this, or a plant, right? But I've never done that typically with shopping. I mean, what's your impression of like where that could be beneficial, and would that be something you would use? So
I kind of was playing around with it when we were talking about this podcast, because I hadn't used it really, and I knew it was there, but I hadn't had a reason to use it. But very similar to you, I use Google Lens a lot for like if we're out thrifting and then there's some like random piece, I want to like, what is this? And is it cool, or a bug, things like that. But I also use it for pricing to see like where everything's being sold and for what price. And so I think Amazon, it's going to be interesting because I actually took it into a store with me and would scan and see what the price was on Amazon, or if they at least had something comparable, because it does bring up like items, not just exact matches. And so it could create a more competitive space. I mean, we know shoppers are already doing it on their phones, like when they're in stores. It's not uncommon for somebody to price check larger items. But if it's something you need shipped, and maybe, I don't know, toilet paper or something, like not that an instant need, or like that you're just looking at and like maybe Amazon has it cheaper. And depending on their systems, because they're such a closed loop system with all of their media, could they know that you're about to purchase and suggest that you price check while you're out shopping? Like, will it get to that point? I don't know. I like
Amazon, knowing Amazon, they're probably monitoring your location. They may know what store you're in, right? And so they're using that data as you're using that live search to inform their systems in order to, for whatever reason, right? Make a better product selection, hit you with ads, whatever they might do that for.
Oh, I think we'll see it. Like I said, in the advertising and maybe even potentially in social, they integrate and listen. So like, when people are buying those media or those audiences, be like, oh, somebody that has been scanning a lot of this aesthetic type item. And so they know that they could target those people. I always tell people, when people, they go on the government rants about, oh, the government's tracking me. I'm like, it is not. I mean, they are maybe, but it's me. It's people like me. It's marketers.
Yeah, exactly.
We are tracking you guys on a scary, scary level sometimes.
Feel a little bad about that.
I do sometimes.
Just
sometimes.
All right. Let's move on to our next quick hit. So Walmart has talked a lot about retailtainment over the years, right? And that was one of the areas that you said you've enjoyed quite a bit. So Walmart is taking the idea from a TikTok FYP or For You page and bringing it to life through a road tour, right? So they're going to have semi trucks that are traveling around to different events and different locations, not just Walmart parking lots, but other locations. And so a lot of these are centered around Gen Z interests. There's K-pop, retro gaming, there's a rodeo truck, there's a nature truck, and there's even one for like workout, post-workout, and self-care. So it's really trying to bring, what people interact with on screens and trying to bring it into real life. So you've got this transition of social media to the physical environment. And so, do you feel like retailtainment and things like this and what Walmart is doing with FYP, you feel like it really makes a difference? Is it really bring shoppers to retail? Does it really build brands? Like, what are your thoughts around, an activity like this?
So I will say I love a good retailtainment program. Right. To your point, I started in that space. Yeah. But retail, the way that they're doing these FYP, that is the quintessential definition of what omni is and what omni has become, because you are taking a digital experience or something that has happened in a whole other place and you are taking it to where you know your shoppers are. So you're bringing it to a point of intersection. And so by taking these trucks, these Walmart trucks to some of these events, I think that's going to resonate really well with the shopper. Sometimes they can fall flat when you just have them at the Walmart parking lot. And if you don't do enough marketing behind it or don't understand because there can be several Walmarts in a certain area, which one is actually the best one that you need to be at. And so I think, sometimes we oversimplify the retailtainment approach, but really if you're approaching it with an omni perspective, and because good, bad, or indifferent, most of our youth, they spend a ridiculous amount of time on screen. Hell, I spend a ridiculous amount of time on screens now. So while none of those are my thing, but I do have kids that are in this range. And that was kind of something I was thinking about. I was like, did they take the opportunity to target the parents that they can identify that have children in this space? I have one that the K-pop stuff, if it was here, he would love to go.
Right.
But I haven't necessarily been targeted with anything yet. And so I think there's also that Gen Z, they're still young enough in that kind of section that the older ones, they're in college, they're buying power, all of that. But there's a whole subset that 12, I think, is probably the youngest in that bracket we're looking at. They are not driving themselves to Walmart. Yeah. So while part of the concern, I think people are it's not going to resonate with the core Walmart shopper. Well, it's not meant to resonate with the core Walmart shopper. It's meant to be engaging so that they want to come and to bring a new shopper into the store that is very heavily screen dependent.
Yeah. What I like about it too is it's brand building, but it's also community building, right? And so the community usually rallies around these type of events, right? And so, whether it's a Saturday morning at a Walmart or a Friday afternoon at a park or, wherever the trucks are going, and there's a whole schedule on Walmart's Walmart side around this on where they're going to be. It does bring people, together, it brings people to these events and gives families an opportunity to have a little fun, with their kids or even young adults, that are looking for something to do, and Walmart is behind it, and so I feel like it's a great opportunity for the brand. Is it going to change the world? Is it going to change? No, but I think it's a lot of these little things that add up over time.
And I think that's important also is especially when we kind of hit on measurement later on in this section, it's brand building, but they are hard to generate a profitable return because of the expense that goes into creating the assets, the fuel, the travel time, just the people, all the different certifications and insurances that you have to do. So brand building, but you need to look at it from what it is and not necessarily from just a straight ROAS perspective. There is going to be a more long tail opportunity on those than an immediate, we just saw a 7% lift at store XYZ, because we had the truck there. Hopefully that is not the expectation and they will appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So the last quick hit we have McDonald's, right? Not typically a retail media, but
yes.
Bear with me for a second. I'm not going to rant, I promise, but McDonald's just recently brought back extra value meals. I think I remember when McDonald's started extra value meals. I think at that time, extra value meals were maybe $2.99.
Right. Extra value meals are
$8, Cassie, $8. That, I know the meals themselves are $12 to $13, I think now, and in a lot of ways, but $8, that's quite high.
I feel like it's a much bigger, those two numbers are way closer together than they used to be too, right? Because the value meal was $2-3, and back then a full meal was probably around 10 still, maybe 8 to 10, but that's a significant savings gap. And now we're going 8 to 12, we're shortening that space, and so it's not really a value.
Yeah. Do you think other QSR restaurants are also going to amplify their value menu, so to speak? There are questions of whether or not what's happening with the economy and economic headwinds, as I like to say, economic headwinds. But when the financial and economic times get a little bit tough, brands start to talk more about value, right? So they can kind of maintain a price point that's reasonable, but you're getting more for your money. So value is obviously a key term. Do you think this will start a trend of price wars of value meals across the QSR landscape?
I sure hope so. Yeah. Because even I know Sonic has started with a little $2 to $3 subset menu in the app, and Taco Bell has theirs. And I've started noticing because I get the Sonic push notification that they've been pushing a lot more, it feels like lately, than they have historically. But yeah, all of us are going to be facing the same problem that QSR is. It's going to become a share of dollar conversation.
Right.
And so you have to establish the value. QSR is therefore of convenience, and convenience is key right now. So they'll probably do fine. But yeah, I hope they do. I want to see some like good social media wars with like Burger King talking, smack to Wendy's, talking smack up McDonald's about their, value meal, and it's not actually a value.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always good entertainment.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes, and get your Big Mac meal for $8 and your sausage McMuffin with egg meal for $5.
I'm gonna do a Happy Meal, I guess, and so I get a toy with it. At least I'll feel better about it.
That could be a whole other topic for another day. those promotions and incentives. All right. So that was the quick hits. So now let's get into our bigger, meatier, I guess, topics. I mean, we just talked about hamburgers, so I guess that's a good.
It is very good
transition, right? All right. So our first topic, we're going to talk about measurement in retail and what really matters. And we could probably do a whole podcast just on this, because I think it's such a hot topic in retail, right? And so whenever the conversation in retail comes up, there's just this groan around measurement, right? It's like, well, we can measure this, we can't measure that. The numbers that I see don't reflect my sales. Every retailer has their own measurement criteria. KPIs aren't the same. Numbers don't line up. Brands that are controlling more of the retail media budgets, they want to see results that, before they release funds, right? And so it's really becoming a bit more challenging, really, in the conversations that we're having. It's clear that incrementality is one that is a clear North Star that everybody really wants to see is, did my marketing or did my media actually drive incremental sales, not just capture people who would have bought already? But, it's hard to measure, right? Because, last point attribution, last click, there's, all of these things actually are coming together. So, from your perspective, and you're definitely way more versed on measurement in your experiences than I am, but like, what is your perspective on the value of measurement, where measurement is headed, and also considering online versus in store, because, you mentioned omnichannel earlier. These are omnichannel shoppers. They're shopping online, they're shopping in store. It's all about convenience. How do we measure to make sure that our media or marketing activities are actually driving the bottom line?
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, there is 80% of grocery shopping, or 70 to 80% still happens in store. Right. So that is a huge component of this, especially with your Walmarts, your Costco's, your Sam's, your Kroger's, all of those, because they are brick and mortars first and foremost. And, but they need to be able to engage that person in a digital experience. Even if the shopper isn't necessarily a digital shopper in that ecosystem,
right,
you're still trying to impact that in-store shopping behavior. And can we get rid of ROAS? Like,
ROAS is the best metric.
I don't know how many conversations I've had over the years. And ROAS used to be, I mean, we didn't have much more. Like, we would look at ROAS goals, it was better than click-through rate and impressions, but it still doesn't tell. It just tracks the number of sales that happened during the period that your media ran. And in that space, like, it's incomplete. And even on the incremental side of it, understanding that incremental value can be very difficult. I will say, I don't think there's a one end all be all solution. I have been fortunate to be able to partner with a lot of different data, the IRIs, the ANSAs, the Nielsen's, most recently I'd onboarded a newer company called Peak, and they were using AI modeling to kind of flatten out all of those other things that happen in a market, weather trends and things like that. But also to look at it from a cross-retailer perspective, because that is the other big issue with this is Walmart's reporting is not going to be the same as Kroger's reporting. Right. And even the impact of something like search, Kroger could be driving more incrementality in your search, but have a lower ROAS just because they don't have the space to grow like Walmart does. And so kind of levelizing that playing field, even for me in that space, I was with fresh and frozen items at Dollar General. They only get a truck once a week. So if you run through the product, and they also have very limited shelf space for that product. So you might get 4 items on a shelf at a time. But if you're running promotions and things like that, well, once you run through that inventory, like there's not a much opportunity for incrementality.
That's such a great point, because I think there are always aspects to, sales that go beyond just media. On shelf availability is an important part, right?
Right.
And it makes so much sense. So yeah, in that example, and I had no idea, like you only get 1 truck a week. Yeah, if you run through your 5 or 6 items on the shelf, no matter how much media you run, you're not going to increase your sales, right? You probably should stop media at that point, right? Depending on what the promotion is. Right?
And then depending on how well the inventory is tracked, you may not know what your true inventory is, especially on smaller items that are easily handheld, like individual wrapped ice cream, 20-ounce single serves. I've been on 2 brands that we had that problem, and those things like to walk away a lot. So your inventory is always off. But that even goes into the whole measurement conversation. And you can even look at measurement from an opportunity of declining. Like if you are facing hemorrhaging or rapidly declining sales, maybe you didn't drive any incrementality, but did you slow the hemorrhage? Right. Like, did you stop? Or was there a competitor coming in? Did you manage to stop losing share? There's so many other factors to it that need to be considered, and not just ROAS and not just incrementality.
Right.
Because you may not.
Good point. Yeah.
But in that incrementality conversation with Dollar General, it gives you the opportunity to go back on the sales side and say, hey, we are looking at running some kind of pricing promotion, blah, 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 to support your business, but we need incremental placement. Right. How do we get that for this time frame? Yeah. And the same conversation with Walmart, we would intentionally ramp up sales during that time if we were getting end cap or feature placement, because we had more inventory that we could move. Right. Walmart, we didn't necessarily have the inventory issues like Dollar General, but it takes into consideration. And then also comparing Dollar General spend directly to a Walmart spend, and even digital media to digital media, like you're talking very different shoppers, very different ecosystems. Like it's not apples to apples.
Yeah, it's super complex, super complicated. I think, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, is like the expectation of your retail media strategist, right. Considering omnichannel, considering all the retailers, knowing all the nuances, is it's difficult, right? And it's super challenging. I think, from my perspective and what I've seen, it's like, let's be clear on what the objective is, right? So yes. Are we trying to defend our position? Are we trying to gain incrementality? Really be realistic of who the retailer is and what we're trying to achieve. I think that will go a long way. And then understand, like, because I've been in conversations where, measurement perfection is expected when measurement perfection does not exist.
Does not exist.
It does not exist, right? And so some brands don't like modeling, right? They don't want you to model. They want to use a different methodology, and there's several different methodologies to get there. But it is interesting how measurement is such a key role, and I think clarity up front isn't done. Isn't done all the time, right? It's just
right.
Having that clarity is so important.
Even when you have clarity up front, I have caught myself. I mean, my plans, I set the KPIs, and then I start seeing the results, and it's something like, I don't know, a metric that I'm used to seeing it be higher. Right. And it really doesn't matter to what we're looking at, but it does take you a moment to like stop yourself and go, that doesn't matter right now. It is technically doing what we want it to do. But, when you are so trained to look at certain metrics, or like a click-through rate that decreases, like, or, something like that we've always traditionally looked at, you almost have to retrain yourself too, to stop and go, wait a second, what is our true goal?
Right.
What is the KPI? So what if this other number isn't doing this, because that's not the goal of this number for this time? And and then communicating that with sales and with your leadership, because that's always coming back to that. If your KPI was new to brand shoppers, okay, great. We may not see as much incremental lift as we would have on a traditional program, because we were solely focused on new to brand shoppers. Right. So that new to brand percent is really what's going to matter to us more than the total ROAS.
Right. Yeah. And I think we get confused sometimes on the difference between a campaign objective and a media objective.
Yes.
The media objective should support the campaign objective, but they aren't one and the same. Right. 99% of the time.
Well, and usually there's multiple tactics.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So to hold them all to that same, and then as long as it's funneling up and just reminding yourself that what the goal was.
Well, and being on the agency side. So as I've been, you've been on the brand side, Cassie, so you understand where I'm coming from on this one. But there's a lot of pressure when an agency is looking at the numbers. And to your point about why did the click-through rate change, even though that may not be necessarily the focus of the campaign, right? But it in the meeting, right, in the report that we have to send over to a brand and say, hey, something changed, and everybody wants to optimize everything, right? Because we're in this performance media mindset across the entire ecosystem, right? And so it adds that pressure, right? Well, why did the click-through rate go down 0.01%? Well, I don't know. What can we do to change that?
Why do we need to change it?
Yeah, why do we need to change it? And I think there's the pressure on the agency side. Obviously, there's pressure on the brand side too, because the shopper marketer that's looking at the report has to report up to somebody else, and there's somebody that's asking them a question, right? And so just from my perspective, I think sometimes we get too focused in on the numbers, the detailed numbers, right? Like when you're running a campaign, yes, there are KPIs, and KPIs are there for obviously very specific reasons. But what I've seen generally in my career has been like when you do a campaign with the right communication strategy, right? It's the right idea, the right communication, the right media channels working together, you're going to see good results, right?
Right.
Whether or not, and I understand why, right? I understand that everybody wants to justify why things were spent the way they were and make sure that you can repeat it again the next time, because everybody wants to get to a formulaic result or formulaic process. Oh, if I do this, this, and this every time, I'm going to get X percent of improvement in sales. It's not always the case, right? And so I think sometimes the numbers are just used not necessarily improperly, but I think the emphasis that are put on some of these numbers may not necessarily always be the right focal areas when you've got to look at the bigger picture to really see what it can, because it's all of these touch points that all add up together to really result in incrementality or improvement in sales or defending a position or whatever it is.
Oh, and then you throw in profitability. That's the other side of it. Just because you got a $22 or 22% sales lift from your sales last year, 22% of what does that actually mean?
Right.
And then you start having the profitability conversations. And I'll say, I think the one thing I learned was to get really good about asking questions of, when those asks are coming down, and even sitting down and saying, okay, do we just want to move volume or do we want to move profitable volume? And those two things do not go hand in hand usually. Right. And moving profitable volume is not going to be the same as just moving volume.
Right. Maybe you have something on shelf that is, there's a changeover, right? There's a new product and you've got to move product, or, product is getting close to expiration. You got to move that. So at that point, you don't really care if you're profitable. You're just trying to make space so the new product can come up, right? And so like these are all of the things that, all kind of come together in figuring out, okay, success, measurement and success. I think almost like success really goes back to what you're trying to achieve in your campaign,
right? And
then the measurement are some key points, key metrics within that campaign that give you indications, maybe not solely, but give you indications of how things are going based upon levers you can pull.
Well, and even when you think about, so talking just full campaign, omni and that structure, but then when you go into just that digital experience and just that e-commerce experience, search is like, and they'll always tell you, oh, you should be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, evergreen. My definition of evergreen has always been a little bit different. Mm-hmm. We're on consistently.
Right.
May or may not be every, all day, throw some day parting in, because I've never actually had a fully funded budget ever in my entire career. So I'm used to being scrappy, and I've been used to like, okay, where are these dollars going to go most? But even understanding that e-commerce impact, so like a $22 return on ad spend on search, and even if you're, but are you driving more digital penetration? Because that's really how you're going to show growth, unless your in-store sales are raising at the same rate of your online sales, but then you just need your digital penetration to not decrease, and so again, like different,
so many levers, right?
So many levers, so much to look at, but just the differentiation between like these things are not the same. They mean different things. your your digital percentage, while that number might be great, is still only 15 to 25% of your total sales. Walmart's pushing everybody to get to 30% right now.
Yep.
Some categories, I don't know how they'll ever, they might get there eventually,
right?
But it is what it is.
Well, I'm glad we were able to figure out measurement in retail media.
So, anytime you ever have questions, call me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have it figured out. I just like talking about. I like problems.
Yeah.
I like to fix. So.
No, we figured it out. Everybody is good to go.
We've got it.
All right. Moving on now we're going to talk about e-commerce marketplaces. So
yes.
My background I didn't work with marketplace brands very, very often, or actually at all when I was, in former roles, right? And so in my new role, I have had more exposure to marketplaces, and especially marketplace sellers. And I just went to the Marketplace Summit in San Diego for Walmart's Marketplace Summit, and got to really spend time firsthand with a lot of these marketplace sellers.
Yeah.
I know you've had a lot more exposure. Marketplaces are, it isn't just Walmart. There's Amazon. Best Buy just started their marketplace back up again. eBay is a marketplace. One of the ones that I find interesting, just because of my hobby of sneaker collecting, is StockX is a marketplace.
I'm sure I wear fun sneakers.
Yes.
Just for this too.
Yeah, you got to put it on the table.
Put it on the table.
Yeah.
I brought these in. I even have my little lace tips are different colors.
Awesome.
And they're different on the other shoe too. But these are just for Brandon, because I know he has a sneaker thing.
Yes. And so the really interesting thing for me is, like, StockX is a marketplace, and they're a marketplace partner for Walmart, right? So it's almost like marketplace inception, right? So
you can buy Louis Vuitton purses on Walmart sometimes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, is it
I don't know.
Louis Vuitton?
I haven't tried.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but my exposure to marketplaces, like, a lot of these are like small challenger brands. They're trying to get distribution, whether it's through Walmart, or maybe they're participating on one marketplace with Amazon, and they want to, cross over to Walmart and expand their reach. And, I'd love to hear from you, kind of like your experience, with marketplace sellers, because I think there are some pros and cons to marketplaces, and I know we've talked about that a little bit. And I know, in my experience with, big brands, like, the way they see marketplace sellers is probably quite a bit different. But, like, these sellers, a lot of them, they're their own companies, and they support a community, and they're they're selling so they have a role, right? And they should have an opportunity to sell. But it sounds like there are pros and cons to that. So I'd love to hear from you, what your perspective on marketplace sellers and marketplaces are.
Yeah, and I, being on the brand side, I have definitely had that experience where they are more of a thorn in my side than anything else when they're reselling. Like, again, having a refrigerated item and having 3P sellers reselling it, like, Walmart did not have, there was no FDA compliancy. They didn't have to prove that they were shipping it refrigerated. And people were actually ordering this product, and then we would get the negative complaints because it either never showed up. They were kind of like $12 for something that was like $3 in store. But, but then we get the complaint and the bad review on our page because the average Walmart shopper does not know that that's a difference, that it needs to say, sold by Walmart to truly be like a 1P item.
And to be fair, that's pretty fine print too.
It is. I mean, I didn't even know where to look until somebody had pointed, we all had to learn sometime. And even from the marketplace side, so I've been very fortunate in my career to have several touch points with US Open Call, which is when Walmart brings in all of the small brands.
Okay.
And I've been able to be on site and act as a resource for these brands as they're going into these merchant meetings. And again, when you talk about the community, when you get to meet the people behind these brands, it's such an amazing experience. But so they're going in, and what a lot of them, even if they get a golden ticket, they might only get 20 to 50 stores to test.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily a great thing, but they get pushed to also set up a marketplace, and then they can, the fulfillment options and everything. So it's not as profitable from a margin perspective for them usually, but it can be good if they've got one item in 20 stores and they are able to grow some sales there. And then that marketplace side of it, but just the way people shop Walmart, they don't shop it like Amazon yet.
Right.
I think that'll get, that's gotten a lot better from where we started.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It'll continue to get better, but I think there's certain items that on Walmart Marketplace do fall kind of flat.
Yeah.
Because people aren't necessarily going with that mentality of this is also a marketplace like Amazon.
Yeah.
And I think Walmart's, they recently changed with kind of making sure everybody's FDA compliant and a certified reseller right at the beginning of end of July, beginning of August timeframe.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was huge because there's been brands. I mean, I'm sure with P&G and your background and experience, you've seen those situations where people are buying empty containers and filling them with who knows what.
Right.
And it's dangerous for people. And not that Walmart or Amazon or Best Buy should take on that responsibility. But at some point, like, I feel like there needs to be a little bit more. If it's your marketplace, you're still somewhat responsible for who you allow to be on there.
Yeah. And I think, there's obviously, marketplaces are used for different types of sales, right? So there's, your challenger brands, new brands starting up, right? You have your arbitrage, right? People who are finding products at a discounted rate and then they're reselling them and making a few dollars on each of those. And then you have, like you were talking about, where there are people who are selling product that is counterfeit in one way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the one we would want to avoid for sure. The arbitrage thing,
good for them.
Good for them. Like if you want to do all of that legwork,
right,
to make a couple of dollars per unit. Okay, good for you.
Right.
But the ones I really liked supporting, obviously, are the challenger brands, right? To a great extent. I think challenger brands are willing to take risks. They're willing to do things that the big brands may not feel as comfortable doing,
right,
or may not want to do for whatever reason. I think talking to some of these challenger brands and hearing their stories about what they're doing and why they're doing it, how they're doing it, was inspiring to me. But the challenger brands of today become the big brands of tomorrow, or have the potential.
They have the potential.
Yeah. So it's I think it's like anything, right? You can't have anything nice, right? So there's always going to be, I think, people who take advantage of things that are for the maybe intended for the good of a broader audience, and then they use them for not so good reasons. And
and Walmart is using it as a testing ground. So if one of these challenger brands can get in and show enough sales within a week, like I know some merchants that have alerts set that they get a report every week that if a brand sells over $5,000 in marketplace, they pull them up to see who they are and maybe get them an opportunity to actually get in store. And it's gotten to the point that, merchants and Walmart as a whole, like it's coming out that if you are not a best-in-class omni brand, you are not going to have in-store shelf space.
Yeah.
Like, so your digital presence, if it means having the extension of your brand, SKU set on marketplace to make sure, because they share a brand shop.
Yep.
It allows that opportunity to kind of prove yourself out before going into shelf.
Yeah, for sure. That is the proving ground, right?
Yeah.
Proving ground. So, I don't think marketplaces are going anywhere.
No.
I think more probably more marketplaces will end up popping up. I think there's still some things to get figured out, but I do think the idea around marketplaces is to provide more assortment,
exactly,
more potentially value, potentially convenience through those channels like a Walmart or Amazon to get those products into people's hands. Obviously, a lot of people shop Amazon quite a bit because they know they can find a great assortment of items, and it comes with convenience. And so I think Walmart's trying to do the same thing. And I think anybody that has a marketplace, that is the intent. So
yeah.
All right, let's move on to our third and final topic. Today is what happened to Target's mojo. Target, known as Target, right? That's what the cool kids call it. It was like, to me, with Target, they've had they've kind of taken a bit of a downturn for sure. They haven't been profitable in several consecutive quarters. We were talking about previously, like the state of some of the Target stores were not what they used to be, as far as what it was kind of messy, disheveled, et cetera. But Target used to be like where people would go and buy clothes. It would be where they would go buy home goods.
It was a social experience. Like you could go, you would see the memes about the mom that went to Target just to grab toilet paper or toothpaste, and 3 hours and $300 later, she's walking out with a whole new pillow set and new sheets and a Starbucks on their way out. And so they really kind of had that experience part of it that was so big to their in-store, and just the trend side of it. But they've been on the struggle bus a lot.
Yeah. And people would go to, Target had the Pinterest end caps.
Yes. I think after that.
At the end of the aisle. And I think there's been a transition. There has been a change. I think, Walmart has definitely, I think, started to fill the gap. I think one of the things that, I was reading was, people would spend their discretionary income at Target and, their essentials at Walmart, right?
Yes.
And so, again, we talked a little bit about economic headwinds earlier, right? And so I think some of that discretionary income or just spending has been reduced.
Yeah.
Plus, they're going to Walmart now. Walmart has also improved their selection. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think there's such people are looking at Walmart as I don't want to say a fashion destination, but they're definitely more open to and like the fashion from Walmart.
I think they know that Walmart's going to have some of the top trends. Maybe not all of them, but, and especially in like the home side of it, that was when we talked about they've launched the Pioneer Woman side of it. They have these different lines that are definitely appealing to different demographics. And then you have your Drew Barrymore beautiful launch of all these very aesthetically pleasing items that are affordable priced.
Right.
And then you have Paris Hilton's new line that just came out, and it's everything that you would expect from Paris Hilton. And even the same on the apparel, seeing the trends that come in, they've picked a few and they seem to have hit well. And I will say the quality seems better than it used to be. But I do think Walmart stepped up and had been stepping up. And to exactly your point, people were going to Target with their discretionary funds. They definitely had their loyalists that were very heavy app users and everything else. But I was looking at a report, Crazy Coupon Lady. They do a lot of surveys with their database because they have just such a high user base. That's one of a great thing that I've used them for in my past. But on theirs, it was like 32% of out of the respondents. There's only like 3,000 in there, so it's a directional one at best. But was these people that they weren't primary Target shoppers, but they weren't necessarily loyalists, but they were going in often enough, and like when they moved from their DEI stance and they kind of made some of those choices, all these, it's like the perfect storm. So people have discretionary funds or are getting to where they have limited discretionary funds, and they can go to Walmart and probably find, or even a Kroger or, Kohl, or probably not Kohl's, but, they have other options. They have Amazon, they have other options. And so shoppers speak with their dollars. Yeah. Costco has been doing great because of this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they made, Target made some choices on their product selection.
That too,
and quantities, and so that's kind of led to some of the challenges on their bottom line. But what I had seen earlier in a survey on powercommerce.com was the share of Americans who really like or somewhat like Target slid from around 70% in early 2023 to nearly 50% by early 2025. Yeah. So that's a very significant decrease. And, if you're not a weekly Target shopper, they don't see the volume that Walmart might see. And so that those numbers impact them even more so.
Well, right. And going back to the shelf issue, if I have tried going into a store, not just Target, any of them, but I go in 2 or 3 times, and what I am going in there for is either the selection's not there because something's out of stock, all those different issues, or if the food is so close to spoil date that it's not even worth buying.
Right.
Most shoppers aren't very patient anymore because they have so many other options.
Yes.
So even though all of these missteps may have been slight or not that big, had it been the solo item, I don't know. It kind of, what was it? The death by 1,000 paper cuts?
Yeah, 1,000. Yeah, death.
But I think they have an opportunity to turn it around.
What will it take? What do you think? What do you think it'll take for them?
I want to see. So when this new leadership comes in, he's supposed to start January 2026, I think, and he's already internal Target. So, but one of his statements was, "Let's be unapologetically Target," and I am hoping that is the Target of pre-COVID days. Yeah. I hope that Target is coming back, because I would still love to be able to go in there and have an experience, but it's just not that right now, to the point it's messy. They are doing really well in playing cards. And I don't know if that's because the foot traffic is down overall. And so people that collect like these Pokemon. Trading cards.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. I got you.
Not playing cards.
Not mean to correct you, but.
I'm just a mom. I just buy them for the kids.
Yes. The Pokemon cards.
But I know if we go to Target, we can usually find what we want compared to others. And I think maybe that's in correlation with the decreased foot traffic. It's just not as many people are going in. And so when you go in, there's a better chance that you're going to be able to find those, whatever Pokemon pack that you're, hoping to get a whatever. And,
All right, you're here first. Here's a pro tip for all you Pokemon card
go to Target.
collectors. Go to Target.
And you know what? They always say to look under the shelf. We've looked several times and I've never actually found any cool cards under there. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, I think Target definitely has some opportunities ahead. I don't think we've obviously heard the last from Target. I think they're
positioned to do so well.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that they can go back and be unapologetically Target.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So we're going to get now to the finals, second to final anyway, part of our podcast, which is our little game. So we're going to do vibe check today. And so I'm going to give you some statements, and I want you just to give me your gut reaction. So don't overthink it. Just let me know, just let me know what you think. All right. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So first one, ROAS is still worth measuring. Gut reaction? Oh, hey, this is a family show. So no way?
No way.
No way. All right.
Oh, you know what? I'll take that back. I will never say no way on anything. But it shouldn't be your only and strongest measurement indicator of success.
Yes, I agree with that. Marketplaces are doing more harm than good for big brands.
No, I think if they use it right, it's good for them.
Okay. Visual search is cool tech, but most shoppers are not going to use it.
Adoption time. It needs adoption time.
Okay. Retailtainment only works if it translates to sales.
No.
All right.
No.
The return of extra value meals will force a fast food war. I think we saw it talk about.
I hope so.
You hope so. All right. Well, I think of people throwing fast food, so I don't know if I really want that to happen.
I mean, again, remember, I have 4 boys. Like, that wouldn't even faze me.
All right.
I'd cheer for it.
Fall is better than spring. We'll end it on that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fall is better than spring.
I love it. Fall is my favorite season, so it's great.
I like both, but yeah, I like football and Halloween and
the cooler weather.
The pretty leaves.
Yes.
Yeah, all of it.
I love it. All right, party people, it is time to wrap up this episode of Retail Media Vibes. I hope you've enjoyed the show today. I want to say a special thank you to Cassie for being on the show today and sharing all of your vibes with us. Any last words, anything you'd like to plug or talk about today before we wrap?
Yeah, I mean, first, thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Awesome.
Anytime you need anything. And then anybody for watching this and you have questions, you can find me on LinkedIn, ask questions. Like, I love to talk about this stuff. And if you can't tell, I get kind of chatty. So let me know. But the other thing, a little bit more serious of a note, I am the president for our Northwest Arkansas Women's Shelter. And as a whole, nonprofits over the entire U.S. are going to be having financing struggles. So if you have a cause that's near and dear to you in your local community or here, try to find a way to support them. There's a lot of federal cuts going on right now that it's going to make these nonprofits shut their doors. And that means that there's nobody to help those people in need. So it doesn't have to be the women's shelter, but if you want to help support, let me know. But there's so many. So take some time, invest in your local community if you can.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely those nonprofits are definitely worth supporting in any way we possibly can. So, all right, will you come back to the show if I invite?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, good. I love hearing that.
In fact, if a fast food war does start to happen, let's do one, and I'll bring my favorite fast food, and you can bring yours, and we'll talk about which one's actually a value meal.
Which one is the true value? We'll do the math, right? Which one's a true value?
Yeah, we'll do some data.
Break it down by calorie or something like that. $1 per calorie.
Yeah, and then we may not want to eat it after we do that.
maybe not. Maybe not. So in the future podcast, I plan to do a mailbag segment at Ask BV Almost Anything. So if you have any questions you'd like me to answer in a future podcast, send that to retailmediavibes@gmail.com. I'll collect those and go through them, and we'll do a mailbag segment. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Please share it with a friend. Please subscribe, Retail Media Vibes. It's on all of the different podcast networks. It's obviously also on YouTube. So with that, thank you so much for listening, and I promise to do better next time. See ya.